Welcome back to Versus the Network, everybody! This is the show where we take a look at shows that were screwed over by the network and tell you, the viewer, how you can learn from these mistakes. We're back for a second round, and oh boy, is it gonna be even crazier than the last. Except for maybe the Weird Al one. That's probably still gonna be the worst, but we got one that's pretty close coming up towards the end, so just wait until that happens. Anyways, on to round 2. Do any of you know what the channel UPN was? Or is, because I guess they brought it back? But it was the United Paramount Network, and it was known as one of the worst networks around at the time because they could just never get anything right. Not only were people not watching the channel, but they also struggled to get any good shows at all. Now look, I know UPN had some great shows and all, but I'm just saying that for every good show they had about 3 or 4 that sucked, okay? We clear on that? Good, you can stop typing now, okay? People always considered UPN a giant joke from when it started all the way till when it finished in 2006. Sounds like the perfect place to put the Dilbert animated series, right? For those who are unaware, Dilbert is one of the most successful comic strips of all time. While it's not up there with the likes of, say, Peanuts or Garfield in terms of revenue, you take a look at the cast and you can immediately tell, yeah, that's Dilbert, yeah, that's Wally, yeah, that's Catbird, and so on. For years, it had been gaining an audience through worker bees or just the general public who loves to see the office antics. And eventually, they ended up making a TV show that went on UPN. Oh, this can only go terribly. So let's get started with Versus the Network 201, what to do when the network constantly keeps dropping the ball. First off, despite airing on UPN, the show was actually really freaking good. To the point where I'd say that it's probably the best comic strip adaptation of all time. Yes, better than Garfield and Friends. Now, I love Garfield and Friends, it's great. However, unlike that, it didn't have to rework its style to fit the longer format. Instead, this is 100% Dilbert through and through, uncompromised in basically every way. This feels like a 22-minute comic strip come to life, albeit with a more beginning, middle, and end 3-act structure. The casting in the show is perfect as well. It's to the point where now when I read Dilbert, I always imagine their voices to sound like how they do in the show. Because this is just amazing. Kathy Griffin as Alice, Daniel Stern as Dilbert, and so on. These people do an amazing job. Now, how did UPN screw it all up? Because let's face it, we know that they did. Well, it started off alright at first. The first episode got a lot of viewership, whether it's because of the media blitz that happened before it, or the fact that it's Dilbert, so of course people are gonna watch it. It was a huge success. During the first season, they even got nominated for a Primetime Emmy Award. It was that good. So, before Dilbert came on, there was another show called Shasta McNasty, and it is one of the worst shows of all time. And that's not just me saying it. Dilbert creator Scott Adams says the same thing. This show is basically just a brain-dead show, plain and simple. It's about 3 idiots being idiots, and that's about it. It's crude, it's crass, and it's poorly written, not to mention that it's extremely loud. Scott Adams said that the only people that would find Shasta McNasty funny would be the kind of people who would die in a bowling ball cleaning accident. Oh boy! Shasta McNasty was in the time slot right before Dilbert, and I know what you're thinking. Oh yeah, Shasta McNasty sucks and Dilbert's great, so obviously, people wouldn't want to watch Shasta and they'd watch Dilbert instead, right? Wrong! This actually hurt Dilbert tremendously because 75% of the audience back then would want to watch the show after another, so yeah, you don't want to watch Shasta McNasty, so you're gonna skip Dilbert instead, especially if they're part of the same hour. This is one of the reasons why Alan Gregory was placed in between The Simpsons and Family Guy, because the Fox network thought that Alan Gregory was so bad that people would only want to watch it if The Simpsons and Family Guy were on right alongside it. Of course, it didn't work. But still, that was the reasoning. So Shasta McNasty was the first nail in the coffin for Dilbert, but it wasn't the last. Shasta McNasty was a storm cloud that lingered over their head throughout their entire run on the UPN, and it only got worse. So with their ratings declining because of Shasta McNasty's increasingly worse reputation, UPN got a little desperate. They did the same thing that every network does when they hit the panic button. They get a bunch of celebrity guest stars, and don't get me wrong, it was great to have them here, but why were they needed? Did CompuComp really needed to be voiced by Jerry Seinfeld, or did we really need Stone Cold Steve Austin? No, not really, but again, they did a good job and they were enjoyable to see. It just felt kinda odd that about 2/3 of the second season decided to shoehorn guest stars in for basically no reason at all. And of course, just like CBS did with the Weird Al show and its mountain of guest stars, UPN didn't really do anything about it, so they didn't say, hey, Stone Cold Steve Austin's here, hey, Jerry Seinfeld's here. They didn't do any of that. No, it was up to the viewer to determine, oh yeah, using my psychic link to UPN, I can determine that Wayne Knight's gonna be in this episode. I can't wait to see it! Once again, the whole point of having celebrity guest stars is to boost ratings. But how can that work if nobody knows they're gonna be on the show? It's like the network wants them to fail. With Dilbert, it's hard to say. There's an ongoing argument amongst people who even know what UPN is, trying to decide whether they were evil or just stupid, and honestly, I'm not sure where I lie, so I'll probably ask you that at the end of the video. And it got worse for Dilbert because in between seasons 1 and 2, there was an executive shakeup, and that only ever leads to good things. This executive shakeup caused Dilbert to change time slots again and again and again, often with little notice. So picture this. You're coming home from work one day and you decide to catch a new episode of your favorite show, Dilbert. You've been trying to avoid Shasta McNasty this whole time because it's so terrible and it's been poisoning your show. So who cares about that? You can just ignore it, have a nice day, and turn on the TV and oh no! It's another Shasta McNasty! They're procreating! But no, it wasn't another showing of Shasta McNasty. It was just the time slot being bumped up by a half hour without you ever knowing. And this happened multiple times. This is what killed stuff like Dave the Barbarian, guys. Whenever you have a successful show and you really have to change the time slot, let people know. Otherwise, it's gonna fail. And Dilbert ended up failing because of this. Season 2 got atrocious viewership, and of course, given the fact that UPN already didn't have the best numbers anyways, it was time for Dilbert to come to a close. But that wasn't the only reason they decided to cancel Dilbert. The other reason was racism. Not on the part of Scott Adams, but on the part of UPN. UPN decided that they wanted to be a discount BET, having programming that would cater more towards the African American demographic, so they, in Scott Adams' words, fired him because he was too white. Yeah, that's great. Like, I know diversity and equal opportunity stuff is good and all, but when it's at the expense of another demographic or group of people, I don't know, that just doesn't seem right. And before you start typing an angry comment calling me a racist or whatever, keep in mind, UPN had been trying to do diversity and equal opportunity programming for a while, but ended up making things like Homeboys in Outer Space thinking that the African American demographic would think that that was relatable. Yeah, they don't have a very good track record at all. They're the kind of people that think that all African Americans have like saggy pants and gold teeth and all that sort of stuff. So in this case, whether you were black or you're white, you're not gonna win. Everyone loses here, because everyone's a loser with UPN. No wonder this thing went under and nobody cared about it. Since then, there have been a lot of talks about bringing Dilbert back or making a Dilbert movie, but they never came to fruition. It seems like Scott Adams doesn't want to go through it all again, and to be honest, I don't really blame him. After the experience he had with UPN, where they constantly stuck a knife in his back again and again, seemingly unable to get anything right, that scared me from adapting my thing too. I wouldn't want that at all. Nobody would. It's not that the network didn't give him enough support, it's just that they seem to go out of their way to get everything wrong. And the hardest part about this is that it was a really good show, and if it was on another network, it probably would have done really well. Rowdy C from TV Trash said that if it was on, say, Adult Swim, they probably wouldn't have given it the time or attention it deserved. But for one thing, it couldn't have been worse than what UPN did, and secondly, I think they would have. Because don't forget, this is around the time when they had a lot of really big hit shows like Aqua Teen Hunger Force or reruns of Family Guy. They were looking to build up that big lineup that they always wanted, and having a high-profile name like Dilbert in a show that had really good quality would have been exactly what they were looking for. And since they had the same censoring practices as UPN, which is basically none, Dilbert probably would have been the same if it was on Adult Swim instead. To this day, I've been unable to figure out why Scott Adams wanted Dilbert on UPN. Maybe that was the only offer he had. Maybe they just gave him a lot of money or a lot of leeway. But still, with Shasta McNasty, time slot changes, forcing in celebrity guest stars, and of course racism, you can definitely see here what happens when the network keeps dropping the ball. So how can you, the potential show creator, benefit from this? Well, you can never benefit from an unsupportive network, so all you can really do is do your research. What do other people in the industry think of them? Have you heard any horror stories coming from them? What do you think that you both can get out of this partnership? Because it's not just you working for them, this is a partnership. Both sides have to benefit, and if it's a little lopsided, then something's probably going to go horribly wrong for one party. Maybe even both. With the internet and social media, it's very easy to tell what these stories and benefits will be. However, back then, it was a lot harder. So, in a weird, messed up way, it's almost a good thing that we have things like Dilbert out there that have gone horribly wrong, because now future creators can take a look at it and then know how to fend for themselves in this dog-eat-dog industry. Well, folks, thanks for watching the video. What'd you guys think? What was your favorite episode of Dilbert, and hey, what was your favorite UPN show? For me, it was definitely, well, Dilbert. Also, because I said this earlier in the video, what do you think? Was UPN stupid or evil? Personally, I'm on the stupid camp, kind of like Rowdy C from TV Trash. But I can definitely see the evil argument somewhere in there, so comment below and let us know, because we're always excited to hear what you guys have to say. Real quick, I'd like to thank our Patreon executive producers, Lee Fraser, Valkyria, Whoop-Doo, Michaela Bellamy, MD the Dude, Blackjack, Nightingale Wednesday Nightmare, and Unkale. If you too would like your name read at the end of every Media Mementos video, then consider donating to our Patreon, which, by the way, has a link in the description below. Also, there's a link to our Discord server if you want to go there. And now it's time for the comment of the day, courtesy of Lennon Dash, and it's really long, so I'm not going to read it all here. I'm sure you can read it right here, or you can go to the TMNT 2007 video and see for yourself. Personally, I myself was never really a big TMNT fan. The only thing I've really seen that extensively is the Foxbox show. And don't get me wrong, that's awesome. But I'm not a diehard fan or anything, and I'm really happy that Billy is, of course. So this video, even if it may not have done super well, was definitely one that was reaching into his childhood and kind of talking about a movie that meant a lot to him, and now, as an adult, he can appreciate it a whole lot more. That's one of the things we like doing a lot on Media Mementos, is looking back at things that we liked as kids, but now that we're adults, there's this new layer to them, this new element that makes them work that much more. But I'm kind of repeating the video, so thanks for watching everyone, and we'll see you guys next time!